Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to discuss The Great Ordeal, chapters 4 through 7. It's my first time reading the Aspect Emperor series, and I know it's early, but this is shaping up to be my favorite book in the series so far.
And I'm
Yeah.
Daniel, and I have read this book a couple times, and I think that's good news that this is shaping up to be that's good news for the next book, that this is shaping up to be your favorite book,
Oh, wow.
since they're supposed to be the same book, kind of.
Well, I'm excited to hear that. I'm Katerina. I'm also reading this book for the first time, and I guess I'll just echo what you said, Steve. Not sure if it's going to be my favorite, but it's definitely shaping up to be one of my favorite books in the series. Um, a lot has happened in these what 200 pages we read so far,
Mm-hmm.
and like a lot of exciting things. So I'm very excited to talk about them with you today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of. I'm not sure where y'all want to start. There's a lot to talk about, especially in chapter 4. Um, so what sticks out to you? There's a lot, but yeah.
I mean, if you're asking what sticks out, I think you can just answer that. I think you already answered it by
Uh,
expression.
so I was surprised because we had been getting. I'm going to try and not make this sound suggestive because it's really not. But we had been getting teased with Callus, kind of if he's going insane or if he's plotting something, if he's manipulating people, if he's trying to make people think he's crazy or he's losing his mind, and just to get where he wants. This is the thing about this book is that I never really know because I it sounds like he's lost it, like he's gone crazy, right? Like he's insane. He sounds like he's gone insane. Kind of the impression I got. But does he want people to think he's going insane to for his end goal? So this series constantly has me second guessing myself on what Callus is doing, what he's saying, and what his intentions are. And of course, there's a scene that we've been debating how to bring up.
Whatever
Uh,
happened, it was bad.
Yes, it was bad.
yeah, I would probably use. I don't know. Well, like rape is the most technical term I would use to describe it because I think that's what it was.
Hmm.
Like I don't think you could argue that Proyas agreed to do it or that it was something that he did because he wanted to or something he did because um something that he enjoyed
Hmm.
doing. Um so that's probably the word I would go with, but that's not the word used in the book. I do concede that.
I have a question. Was this the like we? That's not the first time we've seen that kind of stuff in this book. Was it the worst time for you guys?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's been a lot of tough scenes with that kind of material. I don't
It
know.
used to be really people considered it sexist because it's always happening to the female characters. This time it's happening to the Exalt General.
I I don't know if I would consider those scenes completely equal. Like I still feel like with the female characters, we got a lot more detail about like what they were feeling as it was happening.
Hmm.
Whereas I feel like with both the instances where like male characters are concerned, we like it sort of fades to black, like it's or it cuts off like pretty early into the thing. Um so I feel like he's still holding back a little bit when it comes to the male characters.
I wondered if it's because I wonder if it makes it worse when it's left to your imagination on what's happening, or is it worse when it's spelled out for you? Almost like in a horror movie when something really terrible happens and they fade away and they give you an idea of what's happening, but they don't show you. Is that sometimes worse than seeing what actually happens because your imagination takes over?
I guess that varies from imagination to imagination.
Yeah, I guess for me, it makes me more uncomfortable when there are more details, because I guess it's just not the type of a scene where like I would go and want to imagine it like by myself. And but I mean, it's also different like when you were like a woman reading about a female
Mm.
character, perhaps, and then if you're a man reading about a male character, I don't know if that like, that might also play a factor, but yeah, I would say it's like the scenes with Esmenet or with Stairway, they they hit me harder
Mm.
than the scene with Proyas or the scene in The Thousandfold Thought with Compass.
I think there's like when it happened to like the female characters, it was like there was more physicalness to it. When this was like a complete breakdown of his mind, if that makes
Mm.
sense. They even allude to the fact that he might have did it just in order to make Sabon mad, right? Not even for Proyas. Just so he he was trying to just take advantage of his mind more, and the physicalness was just like a secondary affect.
Mm.
Whereas the earlier times it was like physical and terrible.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. That with the male characters, it's much more clear that it's not really about sex. It's much like it's about like establishing like a power dynamic, like a hierarchy. Um, and like to some extent, that's also true about like those scenes that concern the female characters. But yeah, like but it's less direct in the physical aspect of it. Um, or the fact that yes, it's about maybe it's about power, but it's also like, you know, the perpetrator maybe finding some enjoyment in that. I think that's more present in the scenes with the female characters.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
Anytime you read it, it's hard to read.
I was shocked, to say the least. That one, yeah, I did not expect that to happen.
There's
Um,
there's actually a video. Have you guys seen the videos that have been released the past couple weeks? R.
mm,
Scott Baker videos.
no,
His his brother has been releasing videos from the last Zadanyanikon, I think it's called, and one of them was about why he has to finish the No God series. One of them was kind of about why he used all of this violence. They're good to read, but maybe we should finish the books before you read them. Maybe
Yeah,
there's
I think
one semi spoiler in there that I remember, but
I watched one of them, I think, and I had to cut it off because he was starting to talk about something that I guess happens either in this book or in the last book. So I did not want to spoil myself.
it's good though. R. Scott Baker's awesome.
mm,
Now that his brother's re-releasing all his old videos, maybe he's gonna creep out of the shadows. That's everyone's hope.
I wonder if he has a book deal for it. If he's like with his publisher, I wonder if he has a like a deal to have so many books in the series.
I don't know about the fantasy series. I know that he's, I think, supposed to write two more thriller books for his like thriller book deal he made.
Hmm.
But I never heard what happened with the fantasy series. with Overlook.
Well, I mean,
This
they're
one,
not even reprinting the old, like the old editions, so it doesn't seem like they have much interest in this series. But I mean, I would always be happy for more Second Apocalypse books. So
this one's in, or this book is Orbit, but I
yeah,
think the other ones are a different one, right?
yeah. I don't think you can buy the Great Ordeal Overlook Press editions anywhere. I mean, I've tried. I've only find used books, and they were incredibly expensive. So, which is why I don't own a physical copy of this book.
No, I'll have to send you one.
No, 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 it's okay. I mean, I can always buy the Orbit one. I just don't want to. I want the
Oh,
Overlook Press editions.
okay.
I might have two as well. You want the softback Overlook, right?
Is there hardback?
Well, that's nice.
Oh. But yeah, all my Second Apocalypse books are the Overlook Press paperbacks. So I
I love
refuse
the
to buy the
size.
Orbit one.
I love the size of it. It's really nice. But yeah, they don't match, so it's bothers me. We also find out that shrank meat is not GMO.
Is
You
it?
know, who said that? One of you said that last time. Yeah,
It was
it's
me.
it is not it is not good, or it has an effect on people. Turns out
Hey,
that's not all that healthy.
GMOs can be bad too. We don't know. Corn's probably good, but other GMOs might be bad. It's
Yeah,
genetically modified though,
Hmm.
and it's organic. So
uh, yeah. There is one moment where Proyas mentions that for some reason he can see in the dark, which I find very suspicious. Like considering what we know about the Kiri and the effects it has. Um, I think it's quite possible that the strang meat has some effects
like
similar.
it's the bathtub version of curry,
The
the,
bathtub.
the homemade version.
Um, yes, they on page 112. At first, only the most sensitive souls could discern the difference. How a growl seemed to perpetually hang from the back of their throat, and a savagery from the back of their soul, a furious inkling that others seemed more and more prone to act out. Only they could sense that the meat was changing them and their brothers, and not for the better. So it sounds like they're taking out other traits. Or,
Well, they got a little bit more shrank meat to eat along the way. It even talked about how anyone who ate shrank meat, that's like a form of blasphemy. So they're all like committing sin. Maybe.
Yeah,
What if
I
we
think I think that's probably I don't know. I think that's probably going to be like the least of their concerns. Um, by the time they get to Golgotha Wrath, they'll be running around naked, eating raw meat, and doing things I don't even want to think about.
they'll be the ones digging up the grubs, just living like we seen the shrink living from the Sons of Sepulor? What did you guys think of the Sons of Sepulor? It was
I
like,
think I was shocked that Sibawul was like that he was still a general at that point. Like if you remember, like he's the same guy who got flogged twice for disobeying orders, and like having like thousands of his soldiers die like for no reason. Um, how was he still in command? Like how is he still in command is the question that I ask myself.
Endless ambition.
Why do people even follow him? Like clearly he's just a bad leader.
I don't know about anymore. Everyone's scared of them. They're the scariest guys in the whole army.
Well, now he is, but uh, before I don't know. That's just bizarre. Like if I was Kellis, I would have had him removed a long time ago. Unless that's what Kellis planned, of course.
Does it to you every time.
Yeah, I probably would have had him removed too, but he's probably the king in his country, so they just have to keep him. And now he doesn't need to sleep, so he's a good soldier.
Yeah, he doesn't need to have his meat cooked, either. So yeah, I guess in terms of like being a soldier, he's probably gotten better since he got back. But um, yeah, what did you think? What did you think, Steve?
Yeah, I wonder the same things. But again, like you keep having to second guess yourself with Kellis. There's something else in the same kind of like in this chapter that again I'm not sure if when Proyas and Kellis are talking, Proyas they kind of reflect a little bit on who has died and who they've lost along the way, and it almost sounds like Kellis has feelings of guilt for not saving Surway. He said there are many I have failed to save. So I wondered if that something is that is if that's something that's driving him mad too, is the guilt of her death especially.
I don't. Well, I wonder if that's an emotion he's capable of feeling, because this entire time, like his shtick has been kind of that he doesn't feel any emotions, or that he's completely detached from them. Um, and I kind of read it as in the way that he was just saying that to manipulate Proyas, not even to manipulate, but yeah, well, to make him start hating Callus, or at least start questioning, Callus's intentions and um, abilities.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure it was necessarily Callus regretting um, what he's done, or what he's not been able to do in the past.
Because he does talk in the next page about does it trouble you? Does what trouble me? To know that Surway burns in hell. So and he has talked about it. He has spoke of Espened in an endearing way before, very briefly. But so I wonder if he's become attached to, or if he was attached to Surway, he has regrets as much as he can regret, and if he does love or come to love Espened. But again, that might just be Kellis manipulating all of us. So you never know.
Well, he did cry for Survey on the circumfix.
Yeah.
So maybe in the moment he did feel something. But does he feel something now? I don't know. Um,
Dunions
Could
are incapable of love. He said that once too.
is that just what he wants you to think?
But he's also said the gods are incapable of love, and that they weren't the ones who came to him because they're not sane, so it couldn't have been the god.
I, after reading that section, I kind of wondered if Survey's death changed him in some way or changed his mindset somehow, trying to change his trajectory or his decision making.
Yeah, I mean there is the vision or the dream he has at the beginning of the chapter where he talks to what I assume is the no god. And it's basically the no god or that person in that dream. Like he's trying to convince him to like what like sort of like join the console or at least like in some ways like participate, become complicit in their plan to like eradicate most of the humankind. That's what I got from that. And it seems that also like it seems that Callus is resisting to that idea, that like he's in this position where he can protect humanity, but if he steps away then people, like most people, will probably die. And he doesn't seem willing, or he's not certain about whether he wants to step away. So maybe he does care about his sheep, at least a little bit. I guess that's the maybe the most important question. Like, does Callus actually care about the people on this planet? Or maybe it doesn't matter. Like what are his goals?
Yeah. Or does he even know anymore?
There's the part he talks about how he stopped listening to the god too.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's talking to him, he can't trust him. And that part you were talking about, Katerina, he says, I war not with man but the god. And Kellis says, yet no one dies but man. And then whoever it is said, the field must burn to drive him forth from the ground. Kellis says, but I tend the fields. Then who better to burn them? There's been a lot in this series since, like, Yatwar's the god of fertility, and she always talks about, like, plowing fresh soil and rising from the earth. And then you get the comparisons of, like, God and men being the granary.
Yeah,
So the
there's a
Yatwar
lot of that.
plows the earth to make it fertile to raise the granary for the other gods to feast on with their million silver teeth.
But yeah, but in that metaphor, Callus has become a sort of the farmer.
And then it also talks about it, like, during the Sons of Sepulchre there in Raelioth or whatever, and the Shrank won't go there because that's like the last bastion of men. It was like a slave pit for for the Ark to take humans from. So they didn't want the Shrank to just kill all the humans there. And it says it like refers to that place as the granary of man.
Yeah, there are a lot of metaphors related to like grain and fields and tending the fields. And there's also one in the Ishtarabin's chapter, if I remember well, at the end with Serva. We'll probably get to that.
I did like when Kellis becomes the place called Kellis.
Yeah, when he was talking about Proyas, he says, Kellis snuffed all extraneous considerations, aimed its every articulation at the soul drowning in the air before him. Because of all the passions, nothing is so alien to the god as love. But just the way he dominated Proyas in all the worst ways. And it was like all the mental ways first for the past 200 pages, and then just the physical, seemingly for no reason.
Well, is it like that? Well, I guess the like my main question about that scene was like why,
Oh,
like why did it happen?
so
And
we talked about the head on the pole, right? What do you guys think the head on the pole is now?
Well, he does mention he learned of the head on the pole. He had learned of the head on the pole. Um,
And all while he was doing this to Proyas, the head on the pole was watching behind him.
I mean, I don't know. I guess in from what I've read so far, I've come to associate it with some like greater will, I guess. Um, maybe like if there's maybe something that's like if there's something that's could be called the greater callus, maybe the head on the pole is an expression of that. Um, I guess like with most of the people in this series, the idea is that you cannot really see behind like beyond yourself. Like you can only like see what's like within the limit of your like there are limits to your cognition. Like you don't really see like the things that move you, like why you make certain decisions, like how things affect you, like external things affect you. Um so I guess for me like the head on the pole kind of symbolizes the ability to see beyond yourself, to like see the other influences that things have on you. That's kind of how I try to rationalize it in my mind. I have no idea if that's accurate.
It's a fair rationalization at this point.
Thank you.
but
Shout out to the first heads on the pole. Remember that during the battle of what's it called when the mathematicians got killed for trying to decide
yeah,
how far apart they needed to put the heads on the poles.
Right.
the OG
The
head
Battle
on
of
poles.
Cayuth. Right.
That's right. The first
Yeah, I
book.
forgot about that. That's true. There were heads in the there were a lot of heads on poles
They were
in
trailblazers.
thousands.
Um, he does tell or he does tell Proyas, this place where you are now, this is the revelation. The God is not comfort. The God is not law or love or reason, nor any other instrument of crippled finitude. The God has no voice, no design, no heart or intellect. It is unconditioned and absolute.
He's a Buddhist.
Yeah, the way he describes it, like it's almost like the god, or what he's describing as the god. It's like to me that's like almost synonymous with just like with the universe. Like it's all like it's everything. Like it's all encompassing. Um, and like you don't know. It doesn't know why it's there. It doesn't know why it works, where there are certain rules that it works according to, but it just is, and everything's subject to it.
I'm just glad I'm not alone anymore. That it's the first time for you too. So
I'm just waiting for the moment when we finish the series and I realize how wrong I was about everything.
Daniel's his best poker face.
Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. R. Scott Baker has a way of doing unexpected things.
And he Kellis does reveal some of his reasoning behind the first Holy War too.
And he,
Um,
he
I
calls it the
thought that was interesting.
truth to Proyas too, right? He says, "How will he handle the truth?" And we're in Kellis's head, so I guess we can assume that all that stuff he told him is the truth in the eyes of Kellis. Because he thought, how would he handle the truth? He didn't say, how are you going to handle the truth? That's like his own thinking. So as far as Kellis knows, it's the truth. But Kellis still doesn't know who's talking to him. What is it? He says he suffered visions, certainly, but he had long ceased to trust them.
Hmm.
And he also tells him that Acamian was the prophet he was looking for all along.
Yeah, which I take some issue with that. Like maybe the Akamian 20 years ago could have been the prophet. But I mean, even then he was already ensnared by Callus. Uh, but I think certainly the Akamian we know today is not someone you should aspire to emulate. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
He's a prophet of the past.
Yeah.
He's
There's
a
a
drug addict who has no idea what's happening around him.
just the past.
In this world, he's still like the top 20% of humans, probably. He's doing all right. Just, he's only a drug addict.
He's made some questionable
Delusional
decisions.
drug addict who's trying to justify all the wrong decisions he's made with some idea that he's following is there's some higher purpose that he's trying to um, fill fulfill.
Oh yeah, one more thing about Proteus. I forgot that, like, where it ended, they both decided that it was a test. They're still gonna have the faith after all of that. It just has to be a test.
Yeah, that's some mind fuckery. Excuse my language.
It was wild.
Uh,
It was wild to see them go through all of that breakdown and then come out just still believing.
like believing while they don't really believe, and they no, it's yeah, it's the way they manage to justify um what's Cal is doing to them is it was quite funny. Um, and I guess it says something about how hard, like how important it is for people, like how much people want to believe something,
Hmm.
even though if you really thought about it, like if you try to rationalize, you probably like they should have quickly realized that. Well, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, they've been fanatics for the past 20 years. What do you expect of them? I guess.
And Kellis does come out and say there was something that he failed to realize, that my trial would drive me mad. And he talks about the voices that the voice he hears that he doesn't know um, where they came from. He tends the fields and burns them.
What does it mean to be mad in in Callus's case? Like, if being mad just means that he's hearing voices, if those voices are real, if there's someone actually speaking to him, then that wouldn't classify as being mad in my book.
Hmm. I take it as he's lost his mind, or he's losing his mind. Or he's so, yeah, something like that.
Is Kilmomus mad?
Well,
Well,
I mean,
Is it more than the little voice inside his head? Is it also his crazy actions? The child serial killer?
cannibal.
well, yeah,
Um,
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, how do we define madness?
Hmm.
If we're talking in terms of, well, killing. I mean, I was gonna say killing people for no reason, but like Kelmomas does have a reason. It's just a really twisted one. And Callus also has reasons for killing people. Um, it's just that a lot of people would probably disagree with them if they knew them, if they knew about them.
I think the world redefines madness. If you took either of them and put them in our world, they're both for sure mad. They're both crazy humans that need help. Put them in Irwa, it's a different world. Akamian's kind of mad. The non-men are definitely mad.
Yeah, I think can we all agree that the non-men are mad? I mean, that they're
Erratic.
unpredictable.
They're losing it.
Yeah.
Sure. I guess so. I mean, the one person I can think of as being mad is probably Sorrel. Whatever happened to that
Hmm.
poor man?
Or the people that Sorwil passes as he's in Isterbint, they're like talking to their wives that have been dead for thousands of years. That's mad. Still in the same tunnel. Just still asking what kind of I think they said, what kind of flowers do you want? It's
Yeah.
pretty crazy down there.
If you're talking to people who are not actually there, you are probably crazy.
So now we got to figure out if the voice in Kellis and Kelmomus' head are really there or not.
I think that would make it a little bit easier to decide if they're crazy or not.
What did it? Oh, at the end, when Kellis has the dream and it tells him who better to burn the fields, it says it stands before him, regards him as it has many times, meaning that that's not like the first time that they've came in contact, and it wears his face, right?
But there's no halo.
Maybe this is all going to mean something or nothing. And
What did you?
then,
Yeah,
oh, go
the
ahead.
no, oh, sorry. The conversation between Saban and Proyas after that was a really, you really feel for Proyas for obvious reasons for Proyas, but I think that conversation with Saban almost made it worse. Um,
I
really
actually
tough
found it quite
conversation.
touching Yeah,
What?
yeah. Well, I think I guess the what I got from it, or the way I read it, is that it felt like maybe for the first time in their lives they were like actually honest with each other and
Hmm.
have kind of come to well, maybe respect's not the right word, but to like accept one another as they are, like come to see maybe more of each other than they previously had. um, so it was a tough conversation, but I really enjoyed it.
It's a really good point about them almost, I don't want to say bonding, but being honest with each other and having that kind of conversation. It's one of the first times that Saban seemed like a normal person. It seems like it's always like this facade he has on. It's like he has like this image that he's trying to portray, and he seemed very vulnerable in that conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess they only have each other. Like they're the only two people in that entire army who have been so close to Kellis, or with Kellis, but also now have these all these revelations that they have to deal with. And they can't tell anyone else, and they have to keep pretending that everything the way it's been for the past 20 years.
They are. Do they have more of the SNet mindset now? Because SNet still thinks Kellis is a god, and she also hates his guts.
Hmm?
Yeah, maybe. I Yeah, it's not entirely clear to me if they've actually stopped believing in Kellis. Like what I got from it is from that scene is that they think he's testing their faith, but I don't know if they entirely accepted the fact that he is not who they thought he was.
Do you guys think that's what Kellis was doing? Testing their faith? It talked about how it had been since SNet before he undertook the study of a soul, because he had too much important things to worry about. Here he is on the march. Why is it suddenly important?
Hmm.
Well, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think I agree with Saba.
What?
Um, uh,
End the
he
podcast.
Yeah, that's it. We're done.
No, but he does say that he thinks that Callus is preparing them for something, and he specifically says that he's preparing them for some crisis of faith. Um, and that to me seemed like a pretty accurate assessment of what it seemed to me that Callus was doing. Um, and maybe he's expecting that there will be some time in the future where um he will be revealed as false, or like it will be impossible for him to uh keep people convinced that he is a prophet or that he's some form of a god. Or maybe he's preparing them for a future where he's not there,
Hmm.
so they have to learn how to live without their prophet. I can only speculate about that.
Everyone dies, even the Synthes.
Does it?
That's what Steve said.
That's my guess. But
No, I mean if everyone's dead, they don't have to worry about people losing faith. Um,
Then the next series is just all takes place in the outside, right, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, something wild's gonna happen.
That would be a trippy book.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to say, I wanted to say, I guess I understand that, considering like everything that Callus has told them in these past 2 weeks, and considering specifically what he did to Proyas, I do understand that for for them to sort of come to terms with that, it's much easier to say, "Oh, this is just a test of that he's just testing us," than to admit or accept that he's like actually trying to hurt them and that he's been deceiving them the whole time.
It's the only positive outlook. All other outlooks are grim. They're in a grim place.
Yeah.
Eating grim things.
Non-GMO things. Yeah, chapter 4 was full of things.
Then we had Isterbent and the whole meeting, the cauldron on Sorwell. What did you guys think of the trip into Isterbent? Why Sorwell could all of a sudden understand everything and read stuff?
So I originally thought it was because of Yatwer. I thought that she just somehow got into his head, and that's how he was able to, understand the non-man and how he knew so much about them. Um, but yeah, it turns out I was wrong. Turns out he's just wearing a neat Nimel helmet on his head, and also his soul is somehow merged with a dead non-man soul, and he's like this weird conglomeration of the two.
The one thing that stuck out to me is in the beginning, and I can't pronounce the name, but a marvel, one of the wretches croaked, a momentary light flaring and fading in his eyes. Is it not? They made this to be their surrogate world. Let's kind of have an idea what the intentions of the arc was for the surrogate world. Um, but now it belongs to me, the very stronghold of salvation.
Which part of which chapter was that in?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we on chapter 5? It's
I
on.
don't know
It's
which
right like
one.
3 pages into chapter 5.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I
Sorry,
thought
I'm
we were
sorry.
talking
I
about
read chapter
disturbance.
5. Oh, I'm sorry.
That was
My
okay. I
bad.
mean, we can talk about either, whichever you want to discuss first.
I'm a mess today. I'm sorry.
So, do you want to talk about Ishwal or Disturbance first?
Don't mind me. Continue. I'm sorry. I don't know where my mind was. My apologies.
Whatever's most excites you guys. Which one was more interesting? The Survivor?
Sure. Let's talk about the Survivor.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
Or
it
the
turns out I was wrong.
Survivor and the Crab Kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I predicted that it was Kellis who destroyed Ishwal. That was my guess at the end of the last book. Um, I was not. That was not correct. Steve, you were kind of right. You said that the Danyan destroyed it themselves, which they sort of did, but then the console had a big part in it as well. So you get a half a point, I guess. I get 0.
Oh, thanks.
What did the little boy call Shrank? I know he called. Were they the screamers? The screamers and the singers?
Screamers or shriekers?
Shriekers. That's right. The shriekers, and then the wizards were the singers.
Right.
That sounded like a pretty brutal battle. For I forgot how many years it said. 2 years or something like that. Maybe more. Don't remember the
It,
exact time frame.
he just says we fought them for years. I don't know if it gives a specific number.
I deduced it from his age because he
Mm.
says he remembers like a certain point of the battle, but I don't remember what I decided.
I would really like to know what the Dunyan thought when the Strang and the Kuya first showed up at Ishwal. You know, like if imagine a society that's been so isolated for such an extensive period of time, and then suddenly you have these mages flying in and um, throwing fire at you and blowing up your walls and like their entire world must have been completely overturned because they didn't believe in magic. The Danyin, they completely struck it from the records, as far as I remember. So what did they think when they saw the mages in the skies?
I pictured it like just like Kellis, they all zoom out and their eyes get all glossed over and they're in the probability trance, just trying to understand this new revelation, and then they all get burned. A couple of them get away because they see other people getting burned and they're like, I'll think about this later. And they run into the thousand halls. To protect their womb mothers, probably.
Mm.
Yeah, that was, you know, of all these four chapters, that was like the most horrifying thing to read about, honestly. Like the Proyas scene was rough, but the Well Mothers were just like that's a whole nother level. That was that really made me uncomfortable. So good job, R. Scott Baker.
It was pretty hardcore.
We found out who the survivor is.
And
Yeah,
remember Coringus?
I did not expect that either. Yeah, it didn't really occur to me that Kellis might have fathered children before he left Ishwal.
Has he grasped the absolute? That's so cool. Oh, it's such a cool way to end the chapter. That
Yep, it was pretty good. And when when Mimara opens up the judging eye, she like decides that the Dunyin are worse than the non-men, right? The only thing worse than the Dunyin are the Inkarai.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you're ranking them, then I guess
Well, the
that would
non-men
be
are
accurate.
pretty brutal. So to be
I
worse
mean,
than them, you're pretty bad and not human. And now I guess we know that Dunyin's bones are more well-like than human-like,
oh yeah.
well,
thicker somehow.
so that's the so try to explain this to me or make it clear to me. So I understand that they like breed for skill and intellect, like we've heard that multiple times. But does that only concern the
Male.
boys? Yeah. So
He,
have they genetic, like, have they managed to, like, I guess I get the thing I don't understand, like, you like you breed, like, you you like breed for specific genetics, but then, like, if you're only like breeding like in like, super, like, people with like super high intellect, like great, like, physical skills, how do you end up making the whale mothers and the done, like, the superhero, like, Dunyan at the same time? Like, did you see what I'm trying to say? Like, I feel like I'm not really making any sense.
You're saying that genetics are 50-50, so how is it that these Dunyan aren't getting half of the blob genetics?
Yeah, basically. If, like,
That's
how do you make, if you have the same DNA, how do you end up with the whale mother if it's a girl, and a Danyan if it's a boy?
Trial and error. I don't know.
it's a good question,
Yeah.
or it's a good question to ask R. Scott Baker someday, hopefully. Lots of
Okay,
people have posited this question, but
Hmm.
who knows?
I'll write it down.
It can
Yeah, but
just
that's
it can just be assumed that as a prime example of how inhuman the Dunyan are, and just completely devoid of emotion, to just cut the tongues out of these women stuck in dark rooms, chained to whatever they're chained to. It it made the Dunyan seem bad,
Yeah.
like as bad as I think it was the prologue of one of the other books when the guy's like thinking about how he should have killed his wife and his kids because the Inker eye's like holding him up in the air and about to kill him. Just remember that prologue?
more or less. Yeah.
Just the horrible stuff the Inker eye did compared to the horrible stuff the Dunyan did. They're very close. One's just a race of lovers, and one doesn't understand love.
Yeah, it's like gender division of labor taking to the very extreme.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's
But as far as the genetics goes, who knows? I would assume that like only a fraction of kids get to live in the Dunyan world. The majority go somewhere else because they're just not good enough. Maybe they have some mother bones in them.
yeah. Well, then, then it makes me curious why Kellis wanted Esmenette as his partner, because she was someone of a relatively high intellect, when he could have gotten himself, just a dumb bimbo to serve as an incubator for his kids.
Yeah, it never touched on the intellect of the whale mothers. It only displayed the horror, which was pretty dark. Uh, that's a pretty dark section.
Hmm.
And when Esnet opens her eyes and just sees everything black, like the whole world's damned, and the comparison between the Dunyanes, like thousand halls, and what the non-men do. The Dunyane, like, leave no marks in the stone. It's all just perfect. Where the non-men just etch in etchings within etchings within etchings.
Yeah. I wonder if Yatwer has had any hand in the visions that my Mara is seeing, because we got the information from Akami, and that the judging eye is kind of like it's like it's somehow connected to the outside, and you know that like we know that Yadwer is the mother of birth. My Mara is pregnant.
It
Um,
coincides with pregnancy, according to
yeah.
the history, even though she had it before.
So I wonder if maybe Yadwer might be influencing what she's seeing, or the way she's interpreting what she's seeing. And I mean, I wonder what Yadwer would think about the whale mothers.
Hmm.
Because I mean, like she has this like motto of like you have to, like there's something I don't know. Well, not honorable. That's not the right word.
The whale
But
mothers are the biggest givers
yeah,
she's
that's
ever seen, so she loves them.
yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that's what I was trying to express, that they give everything. Like, well, I mean, it's taken from them, but yeah, they give everything to the Dunyin, basically. So would Yadwer approve?
Of the whale mothers, and not the
Yeah.
Dunyan. Of the female Dunyan, not the male Dunyan.
Yeah. Like would she see this as like the greatest sacrifice that you can make as a mother, or would she see it as something like more of an abomination?
I don't know.
About the judging eye, the Synthes also does say that they must respect the old, what does he call it? The the false the false prophecies as well as the true ones. So they consider her like some kind of prophecy, but just some fake prophecy for some reason. We don't know why yet.
No.
And it has made comparisons between the Narendi and the judging eye. Like somehow they're the same, or they're similar. Narendari.
I don't remember that part.
Maybe it's like you're alluding to, that they're both infected by the gods.
Hmm.
This is back when the skin spies were still walking around, and the captain was still stabbing people in their sleep, and Sorrel didn't have heads sewed into his beard. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a long time ago.
The good old days.
I'm happy we're out of the woods. Truly, I am.
There was
I
a.
think they also. Sorry,
No, no, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was just gonna say, like, they go through like several rooms, and I think one of them they go through is the one where they used to keep the Dunyan with their faces dissected.
Yeah, and it only like alludes to it but doesn't describe it, or it describes it, but the skulls aren't there to let you know that that's where it was happening. When it did talk about it, Kellis goes down into the thousand halls somewhere, and that's where he does that face reading.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if it was the Warrior Prophet, or maybe the Thousandfold Thought. No, actually, I think it might have been the first book, actually, because when he sees Scales like right before that, he might. I think he talks about like how he learned how to read faces. So it might have been in the first book, actually. Well, I mean, that's not important. It's just like a little detail I thought was um a nice callback to the first trilogy.
You're muted.
was getting a drink. Sorry. No, I think that's at the end of the first book, if I remember right, when he talks about reading. I think at the very end. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. So yeah, so Maimara has all these visions about like how evil Kellis is and how the Dunyan evil is spreading, and she suddenly realizes that she has to save Esmenet because she's kind of in the center of everything.
Because Kellis is doom incarnate.
Which very like neatly aligns with what Yatver has been preaching. So I think there might be something in my theory that could be true.
Which is, I think, people in Zoom also call Kellis that, like a, oh, what's the term for a demon in this? A Sifrank? They call him a Sifrank.
Yeah, I think Phenyl also refers to him as a demon. But he has reasons.
Proya
Personal
should
reasons.
Proya should be the one referring to him as demon, but he just won't.
So do we have any thoughts on the dream that Akamian has about now Coyote?
It was a trip. Sharistas?
Shauriatas?
Yeah.
Shauriatas?
What did you think about it?
I just like the part where Kamen wakes up and he tells Maimara about the dream, and then she asks him about Shariatas, and Kamen's like, he's not been himself quite.
Because he's 10 old people now.
Yeah, 10 hairless decaying bodies chained to each other in a circle or something like that.
And it talks about like preserving a soul, how you have to like break off a lot of it in order to preserve it. And that's why Sharis, he's split between 10 people. So maybe he can retain most of his warped soul.
Hmm.
Yeah. When they said that the consult was not immortal but long living, I just imagine they, were like very old men, but I didn't imagine them being like pieces of souls flying around in a circle of mutilated bodies. That's not the image of the consult I had in mind.
Yeah, not as great as they seemed. But nobody else has been able to trap their body in 10 souls and live for thousands of years. The Synthes, maybe, whatever he is. The architect.
It must be so hard for you to keep track of all this and know what we've read and what we haven't read and not spoil anything. It must be tough.
It's been long enough that the stuff that would be spoiled is not as fresh in my head. So it takes me like an extra second to think of it, and then I think, oh, I don't want to say that yet.
But yeah, but the point of the dream is that now Coyote is alive. He's at Golgothrath, and he allegedly knows where the Heron Spear is.
What do we think the Heron Spear is?
The Spear of Destiny.
I think it's like a big laser gun.
That would probably be fitting in this series.
I mean, it came from a spaceship. It should be a laser gun.
Do you remember them ever talking about how it works? There's been a dream. They've been talking about this Heron spear since the very first book.
I remember they talk about using it on the battlefield. And I think there might have been like a beam of light or something, but I don't think they actually ever describe like what it looks like or like how they use it or how they manipulate it.
I guess we'll see. It's interesting to think about how sci-fi might be interpreted in a fantasy world. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it
Some
does.
people with sticks and stones come across something, like how they might try to describe it.
Yeah, but I feel like I've read actually, I feel like a lot of the fantasy that I've read has some elements of science fiction incorporated in it. Like obviously like this series, but I can definitely think of other like the A Land Fit for Heroes by Richard K. Morgan.
Hmm.
Like that's basically a science fiction but written as a fantasy without spoiling anything. Um so but yeah, it's a cool, I agree with you. It's really interesting to see how people try to make sense of technology that they have no notion of.
Just call a spaceship an ark.
What kind of arc?
I don't know. One that's got one canted horn. One horn that's off kilter with the other one and shorter for some reason, even though they're both a couple miles high.
And there's an elevator inside one of them, we learn in this dream.
Apparently. And that's where Nio Coyotes finds himself.
You know, I wonder if now Coyote is still alive. Like, it seems if they wanted to, they could probably keep him alive. They could have kept him alive for the past 2,000 years.
I think he did say he was going to torture him real good, didn't he?
Well, that doesn't mean he's dead.
Oh, a good torturing might take a couple thousand years to an alien.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe we'll run into him when we get to Golgotha.
We
If
could run. We could run into so many different things in Golgotha. This is in our Scott Baker book.
fair enough. I'll be on the watch out.
What about the finale section? We got the last Ishwaram back alive. He was dead, and now he is no longer dead.
Well, he wasn't. I don't think he was actually ever dead, but he was very close to being dead.
Oh,
But I do agree he's back.
and then you find out how important he was to their whole army, their whole idea. The only one who can get them in places. Except maybe Patsma. Who knows where Yatwers can get them? She seems kind of mean, though. Doesn't she? Doesn't Satma seem kind of like evil? She tried to rape that guy at the end, and he ran away screaming.
Did she? I didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, she was trying to entice him, and she like grabbed him and started pulling him towards her, and said that Finale will kill him for this, but she's gonna make him do it anyways. And then he just like turned and ran into something, kept running.
Was that what she was referring to? 'Cause I wasn't sure who she was talking about when she said that he was going to kill Malawebi. It wasn't like it wasn't clear on who was going to kill him and what it was that he was going to be killed for. Like I wasn't sure if she was like referring to what was happening in that tent, or if she was referring to something that's either happened in the past or was going to happen in the future.
I'm not sure what page it happened on, but the way I took it was that she was trying to like abuse her sexuality on him. And she like exposed her breasts and started walking towards him. And then they grabbed each other, or she grabbed him, and he like just turned and ran. And I thought it would be Finale, because that's like who she's tied to, and he seems like a jealous and angry person nowadays.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe she was referring to, like, she could have also been referring to Meppa or the Zeumi King or the Licaro, who's like what the chief diplomat in Zeum, who Malawebi just really doesn't like him. Um, I don't know. I took it. It might refer to something, um, just like greater or something outside of that, like that particular moment. But I
Then
don't know.
what would this be referring to? He'll kill you for this. What did he do that was bad? Bad enough for anyone to kill him for in that moment?
I don't know. But she doesn't yet where like she doesn't really differentiate the past from the present and the future. So I feel like she could be referring to anything.
Fair point. This is true. I guess we'll see who kills him in the end, or if he's the only one alive at the end of the series.
Well, she also says that he has to bear witness
Mhm.
to
And then he doesn't.
everything.
He runs away.
Yeah, after he runs away. Yeah.
I feel like it also talks about him waking up with like blood on his fingers,
That was
because that's
confusing.
that's how
Mhm.
they brought Meppa back.
But did he also did Malawebi also participate in that, or was he just a witness?
I think
Because
that it was his fingers that went on to Meppa.
I thought it was Finale. Huh. It was kind of confusing, that scene. I thought it was Finale who had to well, I mean, it was Finale who wanted to save Meppa. So I figure it was Finale who did the ritual.
I am not sure.
But yeah, I was kind of surprised by how, so the way that sort of we, I guess I've come to think of Yatwer is that, or even the way she describes herself, like it's always like very passive. It's like it's like she kind of worships the fact of like having things be done to you, like being the giver, like being the passive person. But she's very active, um, when it comes to Fanile and sort of trying to get him do whatever it is she wants him to do. And even like the way she like sort of tries to seduce Malawebi. Like she takes initiative in that in those situations.
She takes and not gives. It's not Yatwar.
Yeah, it felt a bit out of character.
And Fineo realizes that he's like bound to her now, for good or bad. There's no separation. He's also a pawn of Yatwar. Yatwar's got a lot of pawns on the Benjuka plate right now.
Now
And
she needs some queens and
Mimara,
bishops.
Yeah, Namara.
Maybe.
maybe. Maybe Mimara. Then Kelmomus finds a new obsession. What about Kelmomus's new hobbies? He first contemplated killing Theliopa, and then he thought about it so much that it became impossible. It says that she's always with her mom, and when she's not, she never sleeps, or she never seems to sleep. Probably just makes dresses all night.
I was kind of confused by that, like because he keeps talking about how like dumb Theliopa is, like how unsuspecting, like how she underestimates him and how she like doesn't see through him completely. But then he also talks about how like she's taken all these precautions to keep herself away from him and safe from him. Um,
One was past revelation, and one was post revelation, right? She comes up to him and she's like, I know what you are. And then now she's got all kinds of defenses and stuff built up. Whereas she's probably always been that smart. She just looks like the most aloof Anasarimber. So, like, her stuttering makes her seem weak when she's not weak. I think, doesn't it say that she has her father's bones? Theliopa's one of the only ones with actual Dunyan, like, inner structure.
I think that was Serwa.
Oh,
Oh, the
I think that was in the last chapter when when Serva's thinking back to her conversation with Kellis.
yeah, that might be right. I was just thinking of why little Kelmon was thinking about how weak he was and how, like, he can never win a fight because he just doesn't have the physicality to be able to beat anybody up. So not even Theliopa. He needs to get stronger and grow up, not be a little 7 or 8-year-old anymore.
And he has this revelation about a Jokely and how allegedly he's been sort of involved all along, which is
They
where I got confused. Sorry.
they laughed together at his whelming, him and the god at the little beetle.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I thought that the assassin was sent by Yatwar, not by a Jokely. So
But
I
who knows this?
well okay. I assumed. No, but I do if I remember correctly, the White Leg Warrior, he does talk about the Yadwar, the mother goddess. Um, I don't think he ever mentions the Jokely. So I'm wondering if Kelmomus is just like getting confused, or like just going down a rabbit hole that's not actually there, or if it is actually true that Jokely has somehow been involved in this in Yatwer's scheme.
I guess I don't remember the Narendari, the White Luck Warrior, directly saying that he was a vessel of Yatwer to anyone since he assassinated the Ajokli, the Ajokli Narendari, I guess. I do remember they had one short conversation, but he doesn't talk very much. He's not
No,
big on the talking.
no, he's not. That's true. Um, but it is kind of also the fact that everyone now seems to call him the Narendar when um I don't think they're supposed to think that he is a Narendar because he doesn't have the long hair and whatever is that the Narendar are supposed to look like. Like he doesn't look like a Narendar. Like he is an assassin, but I don't think they're supposed to think that, or at least Esmina did not want them to think that he was a Narendar, or that she made a deal with Ajokli to have Maithanet killed.
And so Kelmomis just sees like the inhuman strings pulling him. He hasn't thought about who's pulling the strings. He just knows that he stops suddenly and he stands in place forever, and its favorite thing to do is just stare at him.
Yeah, he's finally found a toy that's interesting enough for him.
And there's a part where Kelmomis was describing like Ajokli and why all the little kids like him and how he wears the skin of a human until the last second and then rips it off, and he's just the most blasphemous of all the gods. A trickster. Everything he does seems so harmless right up until the point where it causes all the harm.
I mean, you could also use that description to describe Clomomus in some ways. Like he also seems very harmless.
Kellis, a Camian. Lots of people kind of appear that way in this book, but definitely Kelmomis.
Yeah, I was curious. The assassin, because I'm on page 184. The tales of the White Luck Warrior. You've heard the rumors of the tales of the White Luck Warrior hunting your father. This is what of it? And he said, the greatest of the Narandara, those possessing the blackest hearts, those they say become their mission indistinguishable from death. So you're saying their luck is perfect? Yes. So the man who murdered your uncle, he's the vessel or a vessel of a Jokli. Is that what was you were thinking, Katerina, or am I off?
I mean,
That's the conversation with the librarian.
Yeah.
yeah, kind of. But I was confused by the fact that everyone seems to assume that the Narendar has been is a servant of a Jokli, where I had thought that he was a tool of Yatwer. That like Yatwer was the one who created him and sent him to assassinate all the Anasarimber.
Up to this point, I say it's like Satmananaferi like gave him his powers and took away his youth and like gave him strength. So he's been manipulated by Yatwer up to this point, and the really weird chapter where he like approaches the actual Narendari, remember, and then kills him, and then when he's talking to Essonet, talks about how the body's like under the bed. So it seemed like he put the body under the bed for a reason, in order to deceive and play the part of the Narendari. So to everyone else, still he is that, even though he doesn't look like one or dress like one. He did like something like a god's pawn would do. He killed Maithanet without anybody being able to stop him. What god? Everyone assumes it's Jokely up to this point.
Yeah, well, I guess my point was more. I know that Esmenet thinks that he is the Narendar, like he is he belongs to Jokely, that he's like a disciple of Jokely. Um, but then I also remember her thinking that, you know, she was grateful that he didn't look like a Narendar, because that would make her look bad. Like she didn't want people to think that she would like stoop so low as to hire an Narendar. And so she was like grateful that he didn't look like an Narendar, and so that no one would assume that he was like a real. Well, anyway, I don't know. Um, it seems like everyone, regardless what Esmond had wanted everyone to think, it seems like everyone is already believes that he is an Erendar. So I guess we'll just have to see if he actually is one or not.
If he has that perfect luck.
Well, I mean, he's already managed to kill off one of the Anasrimber. So
Half. A half Anasrimber.
well, if you add up all the halves, I think you'll get to a at least what 3, 4.
Poor Maithanet. I'm still bitter about that.
I'm sorry.
Touchy subject.
Should have had Satman and a ferry there to bring him back. Instead, we get the last Sishwaram again.
All right. Ishtarabinth.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to Ishtarabinth.
Chapter 7. So Serwa has outgrown. You have outgrown the Adamine Heights, little witch. And she also thinks that all of the world only in all of the world only Father was real. And someone does she does say, but I have mother's bones. No, Serwa, you do not.
Did she pick up any parts of her mother, you guys think?
Maybe the looks, but she's blonde, so.
All the other kids had some of those traits, except maybe the oldest son. We
Yeah,
haven't
the
seen
way
him enough.
the way she's described here, it seems like she's the one that's in some ways she's the one that's like closest to Kellis in terms of at least her cognitive abilities.
I think it says she possesses the most gifts.
And she's after apprehending the unreality of in her mother, she began glimpsing it in other souls as well, all souls.
Except Kellis.
Yeah.
The truth.
I really like that we got Serwa's perspective. Um, I thought it was really refreshing, and it was interesting to see from her point of view the kind of mother that Esmenet is or was. Um, is it from the way that Serwa described it? Like it doesn't seem like Esmenet was that great of a mom.
I think she had her. It sounds like she had her hands full with. Well, Kellis was always gone, and she was trying to. I mean, just imagine raising half Dunyan children.
Yeah, but I also got the sense that she was really frustrated and she took out the anger on the kids quite
Hmm.
often.
She was selfish. Like she taught them lessons for her instead of because they needed the lessons. Everything she did was just for her own good, even punishing them.
But I mean, yeah, it's very different from how Esmenet seems to think about her her kids and about her being a mother.
I also think it's a little interesting that we get Serwa and the Lopi too. Now, towards in this book, we're getting more of them. We didn't get too much of them before, if I remember.
No, I don't think so. Um, and also the scene that she remembers when she talks to Kellis, the way he talks to her in that memory, like it's almost endearing. Like it almost makes you feel like he actually likes Serwa, like he cares about her. Probably not true, but
Oh, it says like he laughed, but more for her, or he smiled, but it was for her, not him. Something like that.
yeah. Yeah, and he calls her a little witch or something like that.
And then tells her she's got to go take over the Swayali now, and then I think she did.
Yep. I mean, she's the grand mistress.
Maybe the second most powerful person, human, anyways, in the world. Maybe.
Yeah, or at least pretty close to it.
And she can sing. She's a good singer too.
Yeah, that part of that chapter again. Like these four chapters been pretty rough.
Yeah.
Um I don't really want to think of what Harapior did to her.
I like the part where the guy tells him that, see, Yatwer's down here now. Now we all know she knows what you did, because he's like been the torturer for thousands of years, trying to hide from the gods. And all of a sudden, a god's vessel shows up. No, there's no hiding.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the fact that Serwa, like she is like on like completely different level than all of them. Like even though she's completely defenseless, she still like is able to fight back and basically like gradually start all start turning them, and um, kind of bringing them to bringing them to do whatever she wants them to do, like that. I mean, that is very cool, but at the same time, um, it's horrendous. Whatever they do to her, like, and it was a lot to read about, especially like after all the other stuff that happened.
It's been a pretty horror-filled couple chapters. Been dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Uh,
The whole time Moingus is just in there screaming. He's only a half a Dunyan. He's the one that's really feeling the pain.
well, he's
Serwa, I think, can put her head in a whole other place and just not be there when it's happening. Moingus screams. He's the screamer.
yeah, poor Moangus. I guess I do feel bad for him. But I mean, whatever's been happening with Sorwheel, it's been pretty cool. Um, I mean, I was happy. Like I did say at the beginning when we started this book that I really wanted to learn more about Disturbance and the Non-Man. Um, so I was happy that we got some um peek into what's been happening in Disturbance this whole time, and yeah, we get confirmed that Nilgigas is no longer the king of the Exalted Halls, which we kind of knew, but it's clear that he did not send that embassy to Kellis.
There's lots of politicking going on in there. It seems like the person who's currently the king is barely currently the king, and everybody hates him. They decided the compact was honored in the end, even though at first they thought Sorwil loved the Dunyanes. Once they put the cauldron on his head, they seem to believe that he's a vessel of Yatwer. And then they decide they're also now bound to Yatwer, and they just got to do whatever now. They've been living too long to fight against the gods.
Yeah, they've been hiding from the gods this whole time, and then
Once
she
she
just
shows
marches
up.
in. Yeah. Um, and she talks to them about, or I mean, Sorwheel. I guess Sorwheel speaks to them, but she's basically speaking through him. Um, she tells the non-man that she has prepared like two people or two souls.
One is something and the other. Oh, what were the
It
words?
says a soul filled and a soul anointed. And we learn that Sorwheel is the anointed one, which I don't know if it's actually confirmed here or not, but that he's anointed to kill uh, the Aspect Emperor. Or that's kind of the implication, but I don't know if they actually ever say that that's what his purpose is. Um, and then the other one, the soul filled, she never says who that is. So we're left to speculate.
Lots of things happen. Huh?
Team White Luck Warrior or Team Amara?
Oh, I did not even think about my Mara. I think the Wildlife Warrior was the only one that I thought of, but maybe that's too obvious.
Just a little bit ago, you said Amara might be a vessel of Yatwar too, so I was just saying what you said.
No, I can't keep track of what I say and what I think, so
Me either.
so
Me either.
I need someone to remind me. Um, yeah, I don't. Well, I mean, what does it like fill soul filled? What does I don't even know what I'm supposed to imagine that it means. Well, I guess if you're carrying a baby, you might be filled,
Or
but that's
or in the other instance, they did that like ritual where the old witch like gave her wisdom to him and took away his youth, right? So
mm.
she looks younger and prettier, and he's older and wiser and stronger, filled maybe.
Hmm.
Could be either.
I mean, it could
Could
maybe also
could
like kill
could be
moments.
neither. Yeah, Kalmamus has double the soul. That sounds filled to me.
Yeah, it's pretty full. Um, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. Um, but clearly, she has more than one agent in the game.
Hmm.
Oh, I thought it was crazy when they were talking about like the soul being trapped inside the helmet, and it talks about the Saswathi dolls that like Akamian used a long, long time ago, and it says that
Oh yeah,
their hungers are enslaved in the world and their thoughts are tormented on the outside. So they're
I forgot
living like
about those.
the worst life. Anyone who's had their soul like this is living the worst life. Even the guy Sorwell has trapped inside of him now. His flesh is being tortured while his soul is being used.
That doesn't bode well for Sorwheel. Poor Sorwheel, like he's walking around with his helm on his head, and there's someone else like occupying his body. Poor
But now
kid.
but now he has like the Neuralink in his head. Some guy who's lived through thousands of years who knows way more than some little young kid could potentially know. He hooked up to the Neuralink early.
Well, I think I've complained about this before about him being. It's surprising that they picked him to be the anointed, but he needed help if he's going to kill Callus. So
Now he's got an old person in his body. One who seems to not like the way the non-men are going, right? Seems to dislike all of the non-men currently in charge.
who does like the non-men though? Really? I mean, if you're not a non-man, do you like them?
I feel really sad for them.
Would you want to like be around them though? And I don't know. They seem pretty unpredictable and
Like
awful.
4,000 years ago, yes. Today, no. Outside of Ishterbinth, when they were happy and they had kids and wives, maybe. Before they started etching and etching and etching and etching and going mad.
Yeah. So anything else you guys can think of?
Let me see. I mean, I did think it might have been easier instead of installing another soul inside of Sorwheel just to get an interpreter, you know?
I think that the soul is also supposed to, because they tried to compel him. I don't remember that there was like two people. The one was the asker and the one was the singer or something like that.
Yeah.
And they couldn't compel it out of him. So part of putting that on his head was to see what's also going on in his head.
Hmm. control.
Um, there is one thing that Oinerol, the Asker, the Nonman, the Seku that gets assigned to Surreal, that he says about the helm, which is that Surreal can take it off, but if he takes it off, Surwa will die. Um, do we know why? Because I did, from what I know about Serval, like the situation that she's in, and what I learned about Serval, like it wasn't really. I didn't really understand how the two were connected.
I didn't understand that either.
I don't think it has said one way or another yet. Maybe just if he takes it off, then they'll kill her. She is their prisoner. She is a tool they could use to get him to do whatever they want, because for some reason he still likes her. For some reason.
Yeah,
Some reason.
for some reason.
Um, yeah, I think that's. I think we covered all the like really important parts or the important things that happened. Uh,
There's one thing I was just thinking about: the general darkness of this world compared to other worlds, and made me think that, like, you've never seen a or heard of a celebration in Irwa. There's not a birthday party. There's no feasts ever happening. There's no like moment of temporary respite from the horror of the world. And I just thought that was weird. I don't know why. I was like, I've never seen any one of them have a birthday ever.
Huh. I think the most the cheeriest to get together was in the first book when they I forget where exactly it was, but when the birds come in and and lay waste. I think that was the closest we get to like a cheery get together.
Yeah, or Esmnet and Nicamian wondering if they can be happy. They should just run away. But
I
there's
think
no.
some of the nights at the campfire,
Hmm.
um, when they're traveling with Zynemus and Kellis, I would
Had a
probably,
good time around the fire. Yeah,
yeah,
Esmnet seemed to like it.
yeah. I think those were, but I do agree that those moments were few and far between, um, where
Still not.
people like genuinely seem to be like enjoying each other's company and like enjoying the moment.
Yeah, there's
Hmm.
still been no celebrations of any kind though. I just thought that was weird when I finally thought about it. Other people sit in a bar and have a good time in the middle of the fantasy book and like joke with each other and have festivities, and there's just no festivities, and unless we're talking like feasting on meat festivities.
No,
That
I
was
think
True.
you're right. They're not really. I think there are also very few people who have someone they would like to
celebrate with.
do those. Yeah, like do like
Hmm.
that they like enough to actually want to spend some like quality time with them. Most of them just hate each other or envy each other or wanna kill each other.
I'm sure there's other reasons why this world is so dark to everybody, but that has to be one of the reasons. There's just no like happy moments. No one takes a moment to like congratulate anyone ever unless they just did something horrible. They're congratulating them for being horrible.
It's very true.
I just want one Hobbit birthday party with fireworks and pipe weed.
And laughing, smiles,
Good times, that's right.
some punch and
And
pie.
instead, the hobbits are all slaves stuck inside of a hill in this. And
Yeah, maybe what do you know? Maybe they organize birthday parties for each other.
the Amamwa, they give each other like a rock that they found, a loose pebble down in the.
I that still counts. And it's the thought.
It's the
Not
yeah, it's a gesture.
I like to think the Shrink, they're nice to each other in the very back of the horde. They're having fun parties with each other. That's where all the niceness really is.
The shrank, just
Like,
misunderstood.
yeah, here, you want this grub? I just got it. When it described the sons of the Sepulchre, like actually seeing the horde for what it was in like the non-fighting moments, and they're like trampling through shit and digging through shit, trying to like dig out grubs to eat, and it's a bad group of things. It might have changed me too.
I would not want to come to a Shrang birthday party.
They might have good presents.
Like what?
I don't know. It'd be interesting though.
The stretched human face coat.
That might be the
I
non-men.
don't
The
know. I
non-men
feel
may
like
have stretched faces.
Oh, it
if
says
I
even the
showed
Frank
up,
have like teeth on chains or teeth on necklaces. They still like use humans as totems.
I'm pretty sure if I showed up at the Shrang birthday party, I would become the president.
Yeah, you may not have a good time.
It's all about perspective. It's good time is subjective in that situation.
Are you telling me that I should be happy to give?
Um,
Because I wouldn't be.
that's what Yatwer would tell you. Think of the whale mothers.
Exactly.
Just the part where it says that you couldn't hear their shrieking because of their cutout tongues.
Yeah,
That was sick. Pretty
awful.
sick. Can we get darker?
I think so. We have a book and a half to go. I don't think it's going to get any lighter.
Is it darker than the first series? Yet? I think you guys said no last time I asked.
Like for me, the whale mothers are pretty horrifying. So at least in that one moment, I would say yes.
Hmm.
Or what they do to Saraway?
That too, but I don't know, like
Or
with whale mothers, like it's not just like a one time thing, like it's not just one person, like it's systematic. It was done on a purpose,
ev-
like with a
ev-
very
evolutionary?
I mean, I do well, is it I don't know, is it like well, let's not get into what is evolution. Um
To them, it's evolution without emotion. Just cut the emotion out of all of anything. It's just like a transaction.
Hmm.
It's terrible. It shows the inhumanity of the whatever the Dunyan became.
yeah, I think for me one of the, like the most terrifying things about it is that like you can like you can see the reasoning behind it, like you can see how they would get reason themselves to that point. um
Oh,
but
it also talks about how women have a smaller soul or less of a soul than men because they're the givers.
yeah, that was also interesting. And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to take that as a fact, or if that's something that could be proved wrong.
Everything can be proved wrong. This is the second apocalypse. It's going to end up with the no god being the only good guy in the whole book. He's the only one that gets to go to heaven.
Plot twist, yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, lots in these few chapters, huh?
It's a couple 2-hour talks.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we
I don't
should
see
slow
them.
down.
I don't see them getting any shorter. Well, cool. Yeah, we'll be back next week to do a few more chapters. Not sure how many just yet, but we'll let everyone know. In the meantime, Daniel, for people to not get a hold of you, where can they not reach you?
I don't know. Send a smoke signal.
Nice. And Katerina?
I can confirm that sometimes it's hard to reach Daniel. Um,
Yes.
I'm just kidding. You just you find me on the page to inform. It's probably the safest way, the easiest way to reach me.
Nice. Yeah, we do have our communication has improved, so I think we'll be better. But yeah, daylight savings time kind of threw us all for a little bit of a loop, but we are back on track. So
Until in 2 weeks when
in years,
when my time changed.
it'll happen all over again.
Yeah, we'll try to do better. I'll try to
Oh
do
yeah,
better.
You'll do better than me, I'm sure.
you'll both do better than me, so we're okay. Well, cool. Well, thanks everyone, and until next week, we will see everyone soon. That was a rough conversation. That was heavy. Okay.